Do you feel sometimes you're talking to yourself? Do you feel like it's really difficult to get your group's attention? Or do you have to work really hard to work over and yell over the top of the volume of your group? I get it. As a trainer with more than 35 years experience working with groups all over this world, I know exactly what it means to not be heard, which is why I've collected over the years a bunch of strategies that have helped me be heard, and most importantly, without losing my voice. If yelling over the top of your group is your go-to strategy for being heard, we've got a problem. Your voice is one of the most important tools that you have access to as a group leader. And if you're wearing it out by yelling too frequently, you won't have it for too long. And did you know that the number one symptom for knowing that you're not using your voice very well is because at the end of your program or the end of the session, you're feeling like you've got a sore throat or there's just something about your voice that feels like it's hurting? Okay, that is a sign that you need to change something about the way you are addressing your group. Now, to be fair, there are lots of reasons why you may have a sore throat, but one of the key reasons I've discovered after, again, 35 years in this field is because of the way you breathe. Now, I'm not going to get into all of that nitty-gritty detail in this video, but I will provide a link in the description below where you can learn some techniques that will help you look after your voice so that it can last as long as possible. In a moment, I'm going to share some of my favorite strategies that I've developed over all of these years that not only help me be heard, saves my voice, but importantly, I don't lose my voice during the course of my programs. But first, let's think of your voice bit like an instrument. Now, my father plays in a brass band. He's been playing a cornet, like it's a small version of a trumpet, for over 70 years. And as I've learned about the use of my voice and to be able to leverage it in the way that I use it with groups and presentations, is that you think of your voice like an instrument. All you need to do is give it breath. It's like a cornet. So long as you keep giving it breath, it'll keep making sweet music. But when it actually hurts and you're finding that it's sore at the end of the time, there's clearly something about the way you're using your instrument that is not working. So let's consider, first of all, the spectrum of how you could use your voice. And I like to think of it in terms of a spectrum of 1 to 10. Now, generally speaking, in ordinary day-to-day conversation, most of your volume should sit at around 3 or 4. It's a bit like what I'm doing now. Sometimes, if you're working in a group context, you might elevate a little bit, where you might go to a 5 or 6. And then you reserve your 7 and 8s in terms of the volume and strength for when you really want to make a point, like you're wanting to emphasize something, and you should only ever use 9 and 10 in a non-negotiable emergency situation. Now, if you find that when you're thinking about that scale, most of the time you're in the 7, 8s or 9s and 10s, well, you're going to be working that instrument really, really hard. So again, check the notes below and you can find some more really valuable information about how you can look after your voice, but particularly learn how to breathe so that you can use your voice for long periods of time. So for me, in every program I run, my ambition is to always talk somewhere between 3 and 6. If it's a smaller group, clearly I can work on those 3s and 4s, and a larger group, I may have to project a little bit more. And so when I do that, in combination with the techniques I'm about to share with you, not only will I be heard, I'll have grabbed my group's attention, but I'll also be able to save my voice for the long period of time as well. Okay, let's jump into these attention-grabbing techniques. In no particular order, but this is the first one that comes to mind. Raising your hand. Now, I normally do it much higher, otherwise it'll be out of the screen here. But I raise the hand, and this could be just completely non-verbal. And you have already framed it at the beginning of the day is that every time you raise your hand, you allow the group a 5 or 10 second period of time to wrap up their conversation, whatever it is that they're doing, and then return their attention back to you. But you'll also encourage anyone who sees you doing this to also raise their hand. This is non-verbal. It takes really 5 to 10 seconds, and you then have everybody's attention. Now, I also know that when I was running summer camp, I would have a little ditty that would go with it. It'll go something like, when the hand goes up, the mouth goes shut. So the whole group would say that with me in order to get everyone's attention. If you hear me, clap twice. If you hear me, clap 3 times. You get the idea. whole point here again is, without really needing to stretch your voice, but you're using the clap, which will project noise and sound much further than your voice anyway, is that you're encouraging people bit by bit to join in with you. So if they can hear you, they will clap twice. Or if they can not hear you, they'll work out that something's going on around them, such as clapping of hands, and again, you'll draw the group's attention. Following on from that last attempt, I call this the clapping game. I might do something like, and just that little pause, and maybe just tilting my head with an ear, gives an instruction to the group that I want them to copy back, to mimic that clap to me. And then I'll do another one. And then I'll ask them to mimic that again. You could do that 3, 4 or more times. It gets a lot of fun. I open many big gathering events with this very non-verbal cue, because people work out pretty quickly what they're expected to do. Again, if anyone is still busy talking or doesn't have your attention, the clapping is very quickly going to draw their attention to what's going on and hopefully to you as well. It's called the clapping game. You can see links for that activity in the notes below. Now, to be fair, most attention grabbing techniques are just variations of a very similar theme. So rather than clapping, this next technique involves clicking fingers. It might be just a matter of clicking fingers above your head, and until everyone is clicking fingers above their head, then you have everyone's attention. Or it might be, if you can hear me, click 3 times. If you can hear me, click 4 times. So it's a little more muted, but it still gets people's attention. And depending on the environment in which you're in, that one may be more suitable for you. This next one I learned from my son's kindergarten teacher. And all she would say is, 1, 2, 3, look at me. And the idea is that she would often repeat it, and the second time, the kids in this case would repeat it back. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, look at me. Now, it could be that the teacher says the 1, 2, 3 and the group responds with look at me, which is exactly what my son's experience was. But it could be that you say it twice. 1, 2, 3, look at me. The group then says 1, 2, 3, look at me. Now, you're probably going to use that with young people and not with adults, but you could also have a little bit of fun with the rhyme. So maybe there's something that you can add to the 1, 2, 3 and then rhyme the next line that is more relevant to the perhaps younger or the older group that you're working with. Sticking with numbers, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, if you have framed it with the group to understand that you're going to give them these 5 seconds to wrap up their conversation, return their focus to you. You don't have to use a big voice. The object is that as you start to count, anyone who can hear you also joins in with the count. So it starts with 1 or 2, with a 5, more with 4, most with 3, 2, 1. Now, again, learning from other teachers in this field that I have taken on their ideas, I've also seen this done really effectively by creating, in this case, a waterfall. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shh. Again, you're probably going to focus mostly on a young person group with that sort of technique, but the essence of it is the same. Whether you're working with a group of adults or young kids, it's the same. You're still wanting to use something that will attract their attention, but doesn't manage to lose your voice in the process. This next one is a little more unique. Provide a distraction. Sometimes I'll just simply stand there and wait. Or I'll start reading a story at a volume that it's necessary for everyone to be quiet to be able to hear it. Or I'll perform a trick. In a sense, this is an unofficial start. And if that's some term that you've not come across before, again, in the notes below, you can learn more about how powerful an unofficial start is. But effectively, what I'm doing is not mission critical. It's okay if I haven't got everyone's attention as I'm telling the story or telling a joke or showing a trick or just doing something. I've even juggled on stage to get people's attention, waiting for me to drop a ball. I've even thrown a ball in the air and caught it. And the idea is that as soon as I've caught the ball, everyone needs to be quiet. So I encourage you to consider some really creative ways that you could provide a distraction, but give some framing that each time you use that technique, it's basically an instruction for the group to bring back their attention. And in most cases, you don't even need to use your voice. Okay, 2 bonuses for you just to finish off this video. The first one, talk softly. Now, I don't mean you have to whisper, but if you do use a softer form of your voice, like the 3s and 4s out of 10, it does require the group to step in to be able to hear you. Because if you are always trying to meet their demands by stepping as far away from you as possible, you are very quickly going to lose your voice. So talk softly, invite people to take a step in. It's one of the most common things I do as a group facilitator, is that it's just natural for people to sort of fall back out of the circle or wherever the space is that you're gathering. And before I say anything, it'll be like, hey, just all take a half a step in. So talk softly is a really good technique. The other one is what I call back to back. If you have the ability, and people aren't sitting in seats necessarily, but it may even work in seats or an auditorium, ask people to pair up and then stand or sit back to back with each other. That is by far the quickest way I have learned to quieten everybody, because the fact that they can't see their partner means it's much more difficult now to talk. Now, they might be able to see another partner's partner, but often the focus is on the person they've just chosen as their partner. So back to back is a wonderful technique that I've frequently used to grab my group's attention. Okay, so think right now, what do you do to grab a group's attention? Would you share it with me? Would you share it in the comments below? It would be awesome. Not only would I learn something, but you'd be sharing it and adding it to the collective wisdom of the entire educative community throughout this world. So go ahead and use the comments below. And if you happen to love this video or have resonated with anything that I have shared here, maybe you've even got a question, you could add that into the comments. But if you've liked the video, go ahead and like it by clicking the button below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to be very sure you don't miss any new content, which roughly comes out each week, be sure to hit the notification bell and you'll receive a notification from YouTube every time we upload or download or publish a new video. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I want you to have fun out there.